Today's video, 50-pound wheel weights. Now I've had these wheel weights, one set of the 50-pound cast iron weights for the rear wheels for this for quite a long time, actually, since I got the tractor. I got them when I got the tractor. Never put them on. I wanted to try to see how it would do without them, and honestly, as far as the channel is concerned, I feel like I should go ahead and throw them on. I mean, I can't find too much out there, at least on YouTube, about installation of these weights or anything like that. So I already found a problem when attempting to try to put these on beforehand, just to make sure I got everything right. So I'm here to try to point out an issue and just show how this is done and get a little bit of content out there about these wheel weights for the John Deere garden tractors. So in order to install these, of course, you're first going to need the weight. They make a couple different 50-pound weights. They have this one, the cast iron one, and then they also have a 50-pound plastic one, which I'm pretty sure is probably also has, you know, cast iron in it, and then it's just like encased in plastic. So if that's your thing and you don't want to add more than just that, then just go with that 150-pound weight. Whereas this type is stackable. You can add up to 2 on this tractor. Honestly, I think if you're smart about it, you could probably add more. You could probably get 3, maybe even more, honestly. If you had them and wanted to try stacking them, if you purchased, you know, long enough bolts and stuff, you could probably, you know, do a whole bunch. Now, are you going to want to hang 4 of these weights off the end of your wheel? Probably not, but you know, I'm not gonna say you can't. So other than the weight, you're gonna need install hardware. Depending on if you do 1 or 2 weights, you are gonna have different install hardware. And then depending on what tractor you have, there's gonna be different hardware. So one of the things I found out through some research is that the wheel you see on this X580, and same for the 590, the 570, all those, minus the 584 that has a narrower wheel, but this wheel is actually a 12 by I think 8.5, and then this wheel looks just like any other wheel that you'd see on any of the other garden tractors. So if you look back to like the early 2000s, like the X585, 595, and if you look at, you know, stuff even older than that, back to, I don't know, probably like 318 era, 332, I don't know, 445, I don't know, there's a bunch of numbers. But anyway, those ones all actually use the 26 by 12 tires, which the wheel on those, I found out, is a different part number. It's actually, I think 9.5 inches wide. So whatever it is exactly, each of the wheels has, the 2 are 1 inch off. So there's actually a 72-pound weight that you can put on the others. But unfortunately, I don't think it would fit on this wheel. So, sorry, before I get too far off, back to hardware. So the one required for mounting 1 wheel weight to this is this part number, BM17985. But here's the thing, you don't need this one, so don't buy it. I believe it's a problem at John Deere, not a dealer. So I wouldn't get all mad at your dealer if you purchase that. On Deere's website, you know, that's what it says is required, but it doesn't work. In that kit, you get 2 bolts, 2 nuts, and 2 lock washers. These kits, you need 2 of them, and depending on where you are, I'm sure prices vary. Where I'm at, both of those together costed $27. $27 for 2 bolts, 2 nuts, and 2 lock washers. Well, okay, 4 bolts, 4 nuts, and 4 lock washers. I am going to show you what I'm going to do with this to make it a little bit more robust of a mount. Rather than 2 bolts in each wheel, I'm actually going to put 4, and I'm also going to try to lock them in place a little bit better so that the weight doesn't move around quite so much. So what I did, go to Home Depot, I spent a total of $33.21, and I got a lot more. I got 8 lag bolts. You can see that the holes in the wheel are square, so I got lag bolts so they'll fit in, and these are 7-inch. The problem is the ones supplied in the kit are too short, so you want to get at least 7-inch bolts in order to make this work. I got some washers. I got a ton of lock washers. I got a bunch of big 3/4 inch nuts. And then a pack, I just bought a whole pack of 25 because I'll be using a bunch of these. And it was cheaper, 1/2-inch nuts. So I got all that hardware. Didn't really spend too much more than I did, getting the parts from Deere that it says you need. So I can't vouch for the kit that mounts 2 wheel weights, and I can't vouch for any of the others for the bigger tractors that use the 26-inch tire that would use the 72-pound weight. I don't know if they're off at all, but I have done a little bit of internet research and found out that there are other people that are having this problem with the short bolts. It's not just me. So hopefully, if you're looking at getting something like this, you see this video beforehand before you waste your money. So just go out. Of course, if you really want to do this as cheaply as possible, just buy 2 bolts, 2 nuts, and 2 lock washers for each side. They're a 1/2-inch, and you'll want to get, as I said, 7 inches long. So let's get into how I'm going to install this. All right, now as this kit is originally intended, you really can put this bolt in from either direction. I feel like it would work best to put it in from the back side of the wheel coming through, and then put the lock nut lock washer and nut on this side out with the wheel weight. As I said, it's too short, so you need to get a longer bolt. So I got a little over 1 inch longer bolt. 7 inches is actually, I think, a little too long. I think you need it to be somewhere more so around, like, I don't know, 6.5, 6 3/4 maybe. So we'll see exactly how much longer it is. But basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to be putting this bolt in through the back. There's going to be a little bit of the squared portion of this carriage bolt showing, and then you have that non-threaded section. So basically, washers are too wide for this area. So I'm going to take this 3/4 inch nut. That should fit over there nicely, kind of act as a washer. I know it's probably not the most ideal of situations, but that's what I'm going to do. From there, after that, we're going to be putting a 1/2-inch washer on, a lock washer, and then one of the 1/2-inch nuts. And that is basically going to tighten this stud all the way down to the wheel. And at that point, I shouldn't have to worry about this stud floating around and trying to have to line this up when I go to slide the weight on. And I'm going to put one of these on every bolt space. And I'm just going to do that so I can get this as evenly tightened down as possible, so that I have as little movement with that weight, once it's fully installed. So now I'm gonna get this put on. As far as tools, when I go to tighten this down all the way in there, I have this crowfoot wrench. This is a little different than a standard crowfoot. It actually wraps around the back sides a little bit, so you get a little bit more bite. But yeah, let's get it done. And that is one stud on there, solid. Repeat that a whole bunch of times. All right, and here we are. We got all 4 studs on there, solid. As I said, most of the time you just see these, it's just 2. That's all you really need for this. If you're going to use 2 weights here, you probably wouldn't want to put all 4 in. You're most likely gonna bolt one weight to the other weight. And then, let's see, how would you do it? Honestly, I'm not sure. As I said, there's not a whole lot out there on these. I haven't really had any previous experience with anything like this, so I'm not gonna say for sure how you would do it. If I was gonna do it, I would probably figure out how much extra one of these is thickness-wise, just by longer bolts, and then just bolt them all together. I would probably bolt one on solid, and then put the other one on there, and then bolt that on, so each one's bolted on individually. That is how I would do it. Eventually, I probably will do it once I get some more money. These weights are not cheap. Now, if you are only doing 2, I would only recommend putting 1 bottom bolt in first, getting yourself something like a piece of rebar, or something that you can fit through that square hole in the top. And then on the other end, support it with a jack stand. That way you can hang the weight on it, slide it in on that piece of rebar or whatever, and it'll be supporting that weight, because 50 pounds doesn't sound a lot, but it's pretty heavy when you're trying to, work around with it like that. So you can get your bottom bolt on, or you can get the nut on there, tighten down, and then you can come back through and put your top stud in. With this, obviously can't really do that, but we should be able to just pick the weight up, put it right on here. So you're gonna wanna make sure that you get it to where the valve stem will be in a notch, and just line it up. Oh, you know what? First thing I wanted to do is just try to clean around the edge of this rim, just so that there's not like any kind of debris or anything on there that could get sandwiched in there and in time ruin the rim. Now you could, if you wanted to get super fancy, get some sort of rubber gasket material, or do something to put on the back side of the weight to protect the rim, if you're worried about scratching up the rim. But really, if these are tight enough, shouldn't be a problem. All right, so now if this worked out the way I wanted it to, should be able to just slide this right on there. Yep, and it holds itself. Slide it in there like that. You can see these studs are a little bit long. Not what I wanted, but at least all 4 are there, so it looks kind of normal. I'm thinking about getting some screw caps to put on there to just kind of clean that up. My local Home Depot had yellow ones, but they were for 3/8, not a half, so it wouldn't work. At this point though, you're gonna put your lock washers in. Unfortunately, these holes are just too small to fit a 1/2 inch washer, so if you wanted to be real fancy, you could get 3/8 washers. They should probably fit in there. You'll just have to drill them up in the center to a 1/2. I'm not gonna worry about that. Those lock washers will lock against the weight anyway. So I'm gonna just spin these on. And I'm probably gonna need a deep well socket. Yep, I'll be right back. All right, so 3/4 inch socket, along with, I don't know if I said it, but 3/4 inch crowfoot that I used earlier. So now I am going to awkwardly get down here, check, make sure everything looks centered. It looks like I have some room up here, and down here it's kind of setting on the rim. So that's something that I think before I get this fully tightened down, I'm gonna probably try to work with to get this as centered as possible in there. Just because it would look a little bit better, especially when it's rolling. That would be moving around and would look a little bit goofy. Like when someone doesn't have a hubcap on perfectly. straight or in properly. And it's wobbling all over the place. Okay, now to do this, I'm not sure how I want to do it. I don't know if I'll be able to just push it right up. All right, so essentially what I did, I just pulled the transaxle disconnect rod and just kind of rolled it back so that the low side was then on the high side. Everything was kind of snugged. So I just hit it with a rubber mallet to kind of tap it into place where I wanted it. Didn't really need to move a whole lot. And then I just tightened it down and everything kind of moved into position really nicely. So there's a pretty even gap around the edge of the rim now. I think it looks pretty good. As I said, 7 inches is a little long. I couldn't find 6.5 inch bolts. It was either 6 or 7, and I want to say whatever the kit came with was about 6. Or I tried 6. I think I had some 6s, but I wasn't sure that the nut would go on and seat well enough as much as I'd like. You want to make sure you have a good, amount of grip on those. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the install. How I did it. I think, like I said, I think this is a better way. Not to say, the way that this was intended from John Deere was not sufficient. I know a lot of people, roll around with these on just 2 bolts. So this is overkill, but I think, I'd rather just, have all 4 of those holes used to mount it to the actual wheel if I'm not having a second wheel weight on there. Now, for a second, all you would have to do is, and I'll probably do this eventually, measure the whole thickness of that. I don't have a tape measure or anything right here with me, or I'd measure it real quick, but just get that thickness. You'd have to extend your bolts that much more. Honestly, it looks about 2 inches, 2.5 if I had to guess. So if you guys have been watching my videos, you know me. I can't just say something in a video and, for the most part at least, just leave it out entirely. I had to do some research. So I did look at the thickness of the wheel weights. It is 2 1/8 at the very edge here. And the part that has like the depression in it there and then the protrusion on the other side, those fit together tight. So literally from this outer edge, it's 2 1/8 out from there. You have 5/8 of bolt sticking out if you're using a 7 inch carriage bolt like I did. So if you go to an 8 inch, you would probably be able to make it work. I don't know if the nut would go completely down over the threads or if the threads would still be stuck, somewhere in between that nut. So I don't know. If you could find an 8.5, that would be ideal. You'd have, for sure, you would have bolt protrusion through that nut. But other than that, if you stick with an 8, like I said, you could probably do it, but I can't say for certain at this point. I also wanted to kind of show at this angle just how the weight sticks out. It actually doesn't stick out past the tire at all. You can see it's basically flush. It actually sits just inside the edge of the tire. So you don't have like any extra width going on here. So if you don't have the mower deck on and you're using a box scraper or something and you need to get up close to something, your studs here are going to be a bigger problem than any weight sticking out if that's something you're concerned about. This is pleasing. From what I could tell when I see pictures, it looks like people have weights sticking way out to the point to where it kind of looks goofy, but I think if you add a second weight to this, it's going to look just fine. So yeah, this is pretty good for now. Probably the next time you see this, hopefully there'll be some yellow caps on there, if not a second set of weights. So if those are 7 inch bolts, you would probably want to go to 8 or 9, but 9 would be really long because this is already kind of long. So if you could find 8.5 somewhere, that'd probably be about perfect. But yeah, that's it. So hopefully now you see how these are mounted, or at least how I mounted them. Just stay tuned. At some point, maybe come spring, I'll have a second set, and I'll throw a second set on there, or I'll just leave it how it is. But yeah, so appreciate you watching. Have a good one.